Title: The Whispering Forest of Malanda. In the heart of West Africa, nestled beyond a village surrounded by rolling hills and golden savannas, lies the Malanda Grove. The forest is not vast, but its presence looms large in the minds of the villagers. For generations, they've whispered tales of its cursed trees, the voices of the dead, and a dark force that pulls the unwary into its depths. The village elder, Baba Jare, often warned the children, "Stay away from Malanda Grove. The spirits there are restless, and their whispers can steal your soul." Yet for some, curiosity and pride are stronger than fear. The story begins with Tunde, a hunter known throughout the village for his skill and boldness. Tunde was the kind of man who laughed in the face of danger. When villagers spoke of the forest, he dismissed their warnings as mere superstition. He prided himself on his rationality, believing only in what he could see and touch. One evening, after a village gathering, Tunde challenged the elder. "Baba Jari," he said, "these stories of the forest are just to scare children. I've hunted lions and faced death many times. What is a forest to me?" The elder's eyes narrowed, his voice grave. "The forest does not need to harm you, Tunde. It makes you harm yourself. If you think you are stronger than the spirits, go. But do not say I didn't warn you." The challenge was set. That very night, Tunde decided he would prove the elder and the entire village wrong. Before he left, the elder's daughter, Amina, approached him. She was soft-spoken and kind, but there was a fire in her eyes. "Tunde, please don't go," she pleaded. "Many before you have entered, and none have returned. My uncle, my brother, they all vanished." But Tunde brushed her off with a smirk. "Don't worry, Amina. I'll be back by sunrise." As Tunde prepared for his journey, Babajar handed him a small charm, a talisman woven from animal bones and red thread. "Take this," the elder said. "It may not save you, but it will buy you time. If the whispers call your name, do not answer. If you see the faces, do not look. And whatever you do, leave before the moon is high." With that, Tunde ventured into the forest, the villagers watching him disappear into the shadows. The forest was unnaturally quiet. No chirping of crickets, no rustling of animals. Even the wind seemed to avoid Malanda Grove. As Tunde walked deeper, the trees appeared to close in, their twisted branches reaching out like skeletal arms. At first, nothing seemed unusual. Tunde chuckled to himself, thinking of how he would return to the village a hero, a man who had conquered the so-called cursed forest. But then he heard it, a faint whisper. "Tunde!" He froze, his heart pounding. The sound was faint, almost like a breeze, but the voice was unmistakable. It called his name again, softer this time, beckoning him forward. "Tunde, come closer." Despite the elder's warning, curiosity got the better of him. He called out, "Who's there?" "Show yourself." But there was no answer, only the rustling of leaves that seemed to form words. As he moved toward the source of the whispers, the forest seemed to shift around him. Paths that once led back to the village now twisted into unfamiliar trails. The trees grew denser, their bark etched with strange symbols. Suddenly, Tunde stumbled upon a clearing. In the center stood an ancient tree, its trunk massive and gnarled. Its roots stretched across the ground, forming what looked like a grotesque, human-like face. The whispers grew louder, swirling around him. "Tunde, you've come at last." The voice was deep and resonant, vibrating through the ground. The face on the tree seemed to move, its hollow eyes staring into Tunde's soul. Tunde gripped his spear tightly, but his confidence began to waver. Shadows danced around the edges of the clearing, taking on forms that were neither human nor animal. The faces of the lost began to emerge from the soil, faint ghostly visages of men and women who had entered the forest and never returned. "Tunde," they whispered in unison, "stay with us." He tried to run, but the ground beneath him felt like quicksand, pulling him closer to the tree. The charm around his neck began to glow, its warmth cutting through the icy air. Remembering the elder's warning, he squeezed his eyes shut and recited a prayer he had learned as a child. For a moment, the whispers subsided, and the grip of the forest loosened. But the tree's voice returned, more commanding this time. "You cannot escape, Tunde. You are one of us now." Desperate, Tunde tore the charm from his neck and hurled it at the tree. The moment it hit the bark, A deafening scream erupted, shaking the forest. The faces in the soil began to dissolve, and the shadows retreated. Tundi saw his chance and ran, stumbling through the forest as the whispers turned into wails of anger. The trees seemed to reach for him, their branches clawing at his skin. He ran. He ran until he could see the faint glow of the village fires in the distance. But as he reached the edge of the forest, a shadow blocked his path. It was Amina, or rather, something wearing her face. "You can't leave, Tande," she said, her voice layered with the echoes of the forest. "You belong to us now." By sunrise, the villagers found Tunde's spear and the shattered remains of the charm at the forest's edge. Tunde was never seen again, but the villagers say his cries can still be heard on quiet nights, mingling with the whispers of Malanda Grove. The elder, grief-stricken, warned the villagers once more. Let this be a lesson. Some shadows should never be unveiled. Have you ever wondered about the places we fear? The forests, the caves, the ruins? Perhaps it's not the stories that make them scary, but the truth they hold. Until next time, tread carefully in the shadows.